Everything's okay now. Thank you for waiting. On the agenda, I'm taking the place of Dan Herrick, who is the planning board chairman. I'm the deputy planning board chairman. He's not able to be here tonight, so I'm taking his place. The first item on tonight's agenda is the application of Christy Wade, property owner, Kim Coons, 54 Main Street, Chatham, New York. It's for the installation of a sign. If Miss Wade is here.
Right here.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Would you mind coming and sitting before the
Sure.
board?
Of course.
And if you could basically tell the board what you're planning on doing and...
I would like to place a sign for my business. It's going to be Concord Hill Soap and Candle. I'm taking over the building from Kim Coons. The sign will be the exact same dimensions as her sign. I'm not changing any of the brackets. It's actually being made by the same sign maker. I think I sent you a spec sheet on each of your packets. This is exactly what it'll look like. And my hope is to open Memorial Weekend.
Does anybody... No, I'll start with Leslie. Do you have any questions? What we'll do is we'll go around to make it easier for the recording, and then we can come back if someone else has a question that's been generated as a result of a question somebody else had or the comments that the applicant made.
The square footage is within requirements, and I didn't see anything else that I had no questions about it. Seems fine to me.
Will, you have any? Jennifer?
I don't have any questions.
All right, I always have questions. So. I have questions.
Sure.
The one thing that I noticed that we received was a letter from the owner, Kim Coons, indicating that you had the use of the building.
Yes.
But that did not indicate that she had given you her approval to come before the board in regards to this application. And that's what historically has been required. If you come before the board and you're the applicant but not the owner, that there's a statement, and there's a couple other items on the agenda tonight which will have had those statements.
Can I call her right now?
Well, let me just...
Sure.
So that was the one aspect.
Sure.
And I have one other... Oh, the other thing, which it's minor, but again, if we stick with consistency in terms of the board's review, the sign is black and white with the exception of two colors that are on the bird. I'm assuming it's a hummingbird.
It's a hummingbird.
That's a pretty good guess. It's a nice picture of it too. We historically asked the applicant to provide paint color chips or the manufacturer's name as to the color of the paint.
Sure, I can get that from the spec sheet from the sign maker.
Okay. I understand you want to get started soon. And when did you say the date was?
Hoping to open the 23rd of May, which is Memorial Weekend.
Okay. That would leave, and this isn't me talking, that would leave two things. One thing I noticed was that our next planning board meeting is on Memorial Day. So we most likely will not have our planning board meeting on Memorial Day. What I would envision we could do is probably go the Monday before. And the Monday before, I believe, is the 19th. But you want to get your sign painted and everything. And
Well, I'd like to be able to open. I've been 2
Right.
months in there.
Right. So what I would say, oh, here comes Dan. So what I would suggest to the board, if it's agreeable with you, is that we approve of the application. The two things that I point out are minor aspects, but they are important to be part of the application. It's consistent with other applications, that we approve of the application with the condition that prior to installing the sign, prior to installing the sign, the following must be submitted to the building inspector for inclusion with the application. Number one would be a letter from Kimberly Kuhn, the property owner. I'm just saying this, I haven't got the rest of the board to have to buy into it, but a letter from Kimberly Kuhn, the property owner, granting the applicant, Christy Wade, the permission of representation to come before the planning board on her behalf in regards to application 2025-068. And the second part of the condition would be paint color chips and/or manufacturer's name and color name for the colors shown on the sign for the bird to be provided.
I'll second your motion.
Oh, I'm sorry, I was
Was
sorry.
that, you made a motion? Is that?
Well, actually, it was, I didn't make a motion. I wanted to go over what I thought how we could handle this thing. If you, are everybody in agreement with that? Okay, then let me make a motion. The Village of Chatham Planning Board approves of application 2025-068, 54 Main Street, tax map number 66.10-1-19, Chatham, New York. The application is for the installation of the sign attached to the building at this location. This approval is based on the following submitted as part of the application. Application for building and use permit dated 4/8/25. Application for site plan review. Short environmental assessment form dated 4/8/25, which I do not believe we need a short environmental assessment form. I think we've discussed this before for something as simple as an installation of the sign. Drawings labeled proposed sign for 54 Main Street. Photograph of the building showing the existing sign bracket to be used in its installation on the building. This approval is conditional that prior to installing the sign, the following must be submitted to the building inspector for inclusion with this application. A letter from Kimberly Kuhn, that I said Joey had said, a letter from Kimberly Kuhn, the property owner, granting the applicant, Christy Wade, permission of presentation to come before the board, planning board, on behalf of her in regards to the application number 2025-068, and paint color chips and manufacturer's name and or color names for the colors shown on the sign for the bird.
I'll second that.
So can you just tell me exactly what you want me to have Kim say? Because I know she submitted an email already. She did submit a letter, so what was in the letter that wasn't?
The letter she submitted simply said
Okay.
that you were going to be using the building.
Okay.
It
It
didn't say that she was authorizing you to represent her on behalf of this application.
So, may I ask one?
I'm a little confused.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah,
Do
So,
you have your phone with you?
I-
Snap a picture of that.
thank you. Thank
Of
you.
course, you changed the words.
I appreciate it.
Any other discussion on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay,
Thank you.
motion stands approved with conditions.
Thank you. And to the building inspector.
Go to the building, send them to the building inspector, and when she receives them, she can grant you approval to.
Super. I'll read it tonight. I'll call her. Thank you.
And thank you for your assistance.
I'm a brown nose.
Well, it's nice to have you.
Yeah.
Okay, the second item on the agenda is Aaron Flack. Flack. He's a property owner, Chatham Brick LLC, 3337 Main Street. This is an historic review for facade painting and new signage on the facade. board members a second or two to look at the application.
There was?
Number two. We both go.
I would ask both of you to, if you're part of this application, thank you.
Okay.
So I'm the owner and the applicant, and I can send you the documentation that, shows I'm the owner, and a letter from my other partners.
For the benefit of the board members, if prior to the meeting, I walked down Main Street to look at the building because I was a little bit disoriented which building it was and the numbers and things and the pictures and whatever. And you came out, Aaron came out, and we talked a few minutes and I talked about things that I was a little confused about when I looked at the application. And that's what he started to lead into, but I do think I will bring things all up at one time.
So do you want to describe what you're?
So as the applicant, I'm going to let future tenant talk about the facade improvements, because that's really her realm.
So I am one of the business owners, I have a business partner working on the shop with me, and then the other business owner taking the other side of the old brown space is not here, but I can speak to that as well for her. So we are opening a home goods store called Martin & Davis. It'll be on the right side where Boston Candy Kitchen was back before Brown's. We are having the facade painted black, which you guys have the chip and number of there. We will be refreshing the awning, but we have not decided yet, so we will come before the board in May to get approval for that. And then Martin & Davis will be painted, hand painted by a sign painter in gold, which is also noted in there above the awning. The black will extend to the apartment door between the two shops. And then the other store, called Still Life, you have a mock-up up there, will be that kind of cocoa brown. She is keeping the wonderful historic brown shoes on the glass and adding a light where there is an existing electrical outlet and bulb over the entryway. And then she has Still Life, the name, painted in yellow, which you have noted the paint chip color. Were you confused because the color on here is not the same color as the existing storefront?
No, I was confused for a number of other reasons, and
Okay.
when I go through my questions or whatever else, I think some of those will come to light instead of just pulling one out at a time.
Okay.
Would the board prefer I go through my questions and then you can follow up with any questions that you have?
Sure.
Okay. These were the questions I had. First one had to do with, which we were talking about, was the building owner versus the applicant. The application says that the owner of the property is Chatham Brick LLC, and the applicant is Aaron. Okay. And we've had this before, where we've had LLCs come before the board, or ownership is by the LLC, and someone comes speaking on their behalf, and we've requested that we get paperwork from the LLC saying who the owners are, and if there's more than one owner,
Yep.
and then that person has the right to come and represent the LLC in relation to that application. So we have a continuity between who the owner is and who the applicant is, because we've had situations before where we haven't gotten that information.
You're not the sole owner?
No, there's 4 partners, so I'm one of the 4 members.
Of the whole building?
Yes.
So a statement talking about the formation of LLC,
Yep.
and then a statement from the other owners saying that they're giving you permission to come before the board.
Yes, sir.
Okay, that'll address that issue. Okay. When I went and looked, I realized these are questions that I had. That 33 and 37 are really one building facade.
Yeah.
Okay. I thought, what 35 though? I forget, maybe there was another, they were on either side. Okay, it's one building facade. I'm gonna go to the photo for number 35 Main Street.
Correct. 35.
33, excuse me, I can't read my own handwriting. For 33 Main Street. Now, 33 Main Street, for everybody's benefit, is where the Boston Candy Kitchen was.
Correct.
Okay, because I didn't have my numbers in the right order.
It's on the right side.
Yes, that's correct. Okay. So in regards to 33 Main Street, my first question was, is the proposed sign being painted directly on the building facade structure or on some other material? If it's on another material, what is the material? And how is it to be, if it's on the material, how is it being mounted to the building? So that is something, we appreciate what you might provide us in terms of response tonight, but the information needs to be in writing with the application, because the application is a document that has the legal status to it. Our discussions tonight are important, but if there was ever a legal situation, it protects both you, the owner and applicant, and us, the board, if it's in writing and it's clear what we were doing. So
Is this writing not
I think that's
sufficient?
clear enough in the application.
no,
This is on the, this is part of the application.
right, but what I'm saying, is this being proposed painted directly on here? It doesn't say it's being painted directly on this.
It says gold hand-painted signage on black painted exterior. I think that's unambiguous.
Is it on a board?
Well, we are gonna have to find out from the painter if he's gonna be able to make it, paint smooth enough over the etching on the marble underneath the peeling paint. Right now, Boston Candy Kitchen was on a polished marble, and there's paint over it that's kind of peeling off. So if he can make it smooth enough, the plan was to paint right on top of it. But if he feels like Boston Candy Kitchen is still going to come through, then we may need to do a piece of MDO mounted right onto it and paint it onto that. But it's something that we're hoping just to paint onto it, but
Okay.
yeah.
Do you know when you might have that clarified by your sign painter?
Hopefully I can very soon. I can get them over here.
I mean, my question is not the sign part, saying it's black with
Yes.
gold. My question is, are you painting it directly on the building where it's Boston Candy Kitchen, is there not? Because that was part of my
Yes.
issue, was
I
that's
understand.
carved into that stone,
Right,
and how you paint this, getting it to fit without either plastering that all up
Right.
or out putting a board. And so it wasn't clear, and that was the reason why I asked the question. The question is not more than Davis and the colors that are being
Yeah,
used.
I
Okay,
understand.
all right.
Just call it, put it on.
Let's just say we'll do it on a board. Yeah,
So
let's just say on a board.
what you can end up
The
doing
issue
is,
is, what you say and we approve needs to be what actually happens.
Okay, we'll
Right?
do it.
So,
We'll do a board.
okay, so then what you can do is indicate on this paper,
Yes,
this additional information,
Okay.
that the sign will be painted on a board of MDO and
I think
mounted.
it'll be easier.
Okay, and I think.
I'll do that. Thank you.
Well, actually, well, let's see how many things there are
Okay.
before we start
Okay.
piecemealing this.
Okay,
Because we still have to get the information regarding the applicant and the LLC, so that's one thing. The other question I had was, it says on this, there's two 7-inch diameter circles on either side. What are those?
Those are additional painted on words. It says soft goods on either side, correct?
I couldn't read,
Yes,
so I...
yeah, oh yes, it says soft goods. It's just painted on the sign, on the MDO. We have it all painted on there.
So the sign then will be bigger than,
It will be the dimensions of just of what the lettering takes up. So if I remember correctly, the space that all fits in is 12 feet by 2 feet. So we could say the MDO will be 12 feet by 2 feet and we'll include all of that.
and that's an important element because
Got it.
if these were separate,
Yeah.
then you actually have three
They will
signs.
not be, they will not be.
Okay,
Yeah.
so the Morton and Davis and these two little bubble type things will all be on one MDO board that's fastened to the building. Okay.
Correct.
So that, again, that is
Thank you.
information to put on here.
Gotcha.
Okay.
That's 150.
The awning that's here, that shows in the drawing, is remaining, okay?
We will pick a new awning, but we will come before the board in May to get approval for that because we haven't had a chance yet to.
Well, you're probably gonna be coming back to May in terms of what needs to be done left in this application.
Okay.
Okay, so if you're
So
gonna...
we will add that in.
Okay, so just add that in there, okay? Because when I went out, I looked at this awning in the picture and I thought, they are putting up a new awning, because the
You have
awning that's
to.
there is green,
It's-
and this picture is beige, and I got a little bit confused. Okay, so you'll take care of that,
Yep,
But right now, the awning is not part of this application.
correct.
okay? But if she comes back and,
But let's focus on
yeah, you're,
this
thank you.
application.
Okay. I refer to it as the architectural detailing that's above the sign, this
The dental.
detailing that's here, the dental type stuff, as to whether in fact that was going to be painted.
It will not be touched.
Okay. And I asked that question because the photos that you have make it out to be different colors, and it's not.
Whenever you use Photoshop, sometimes it just messes things
Okay.
up, so.
All right.
Yeah.
So again, you can indicate that, okay? The photos, and I'll go back to what you said with Photoshop. Okay. The photos that you show indicates the area above that dental area to be blue, a different blue on each side. So I was a little bit concerned as to,
We're not painting the building. Yeah.
okay, well, and that's the other thing, is because generally when we've got applications that talk about painting at the side, they're talking about the front of the building. I would suggest that you indicate in this that you're painting only the first story of the facade. So there is no issue or question about what you're painting and what you're not painting. I'm going to go to the photo for 37. And this kind of goes back to 33, is the photo for proposed sign being painted directly on the building facade, and are the letters raised individual letters?
They are not raised, but they are painted onto the facade.
But they will be flush with the facade?
Yes.
Okay. You might just add that little information. When you look at the picture here, it looks like there's a depth to the letters.
Yeah,
There's a shadow.
Shadow, it's a
Okay,
shadow.
but, a
Okay.
little confusion as to whether it
Is
is.
there, so the shadow is a different color?
It's, I believe it's black,
yeah.
black.
Black shadow.
So just indicate that.
Okay,
Black shadow will be,
yeah. Yeah, got it.
Okay, and like I mentioned before, but you're actually saying it's Photoshop, is that the color of the, above the dental
Again, it just got.
is different, and it makes for confusion.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
And that was part of the aspect that when I went out to look at the buildings, I didn't remember any building fronts that we had painted the facade blue.
Right.
And yet there was two blue ones on here.
Right.
And it would be helpful if the colors were the colors that's there, so we can relate these colors to the color that's on the building. The same thing with this dental work here. This is so different on this one than it is on the other one. This looks almost like it's white. This one looks like it's a battleship gray. So it is,
We just need to call it out that it's not getting painted.
and I guess that would be the simplest way to do it. Yeah, okay.
So
So the street level
the dental
facade
All
is
that
not
that
being
Aaron
painted.
did is not being painted. So the dental work across the whole building,
is not being touched.
nor the green or the tan above is.
The only thing that's being painted is the street level facade below the dental work.
Correct.
There's a ball light here.
Correct.
Okay. It says 2 by 2, but I would assume it's a 2-foot diameter.
Correct.
Okay. And it's in the doorway entrance.
Correct.
Okay. First question I would have is, this is an historic overzone. When I looked at that wall there, I first thought it was going to be a sign put in there, right? Because of the shape and the way it's shown there. Because how do you relate this wall to being an historic overzone?
Well, I am not the owner of that space, but I will say this. Number one, there is an existing fixture right there. Globes are actually very historic, as you see in this space here. Globe lights have a lot of historical significance. So I don't think it's out of line for a historic building to have a globe light in front.
Will the globe light be put in an element like that, or will it be hung by a cord?
It would not be hung by a cord, it would be flush.
Okay.
To the fixture.
I have globe lights like that on my front porch.
Okay. I just, again, looking at the pictures, I thought the thing was hanging on a cord, which made it look more like it was Art Deco or Deco type.
No, it will be flush. It will be flush to the top. I don't think she wants to take a chance on anything blowing in the wind.
Okay, all right. And again, just clarification, because
Yes.
some pictures it's not clear.
Do we want specs for that? Do you want a manufacturer spec for that?
If it's 2 foot in diameter, I guess what you could identify as to what its composition is, whether it's
Glass.
plastic or glass.
It's glass.
That's glass, okay.
And the base,
I'm sorry?
the globe is in what?
It's kind of like this, but imagine it larger. So it's a frosted glass globe, and it will be flush to the ceiling where the outlet is.
So I'd like to kind of have what that fixture's gonna look like.
I don't think you'll be able to see it. I think it'll be just a little black ring, and the globe is attached to it up in the top.
I'm thinking we might be thinking that's a 2-foot globe is not really that historic. Most of your globes are rather smaller upstairs.
If the thing is
Upstairs.
being mounted into a fixture, like you're saying, I think what will help Dan and the rest of us is if you can provide a picture with that fixture, what the light will look like in the fixture.
I don't really understand, because I thought that's what the picture was showing. Can you explain a little bit?
Well, yes, certainly, that's what we're here for.
Okay.
Okay. I'm envisioning, here's the ceiling,
Okay.
I'm envisioning something and the globe coming out of this. So this is the fixture that's mounted to the ceiling. I didn't draw a circle, but, and it's recessed in, like those bulbs are slightly recessed in to the fixture.
Right.
Okay, so, because, again, when you look at the picture, you can't tell that it actually is mounted into a fixture. It looked to me like it was hanging. I think that maybe would,
This is basically what it will be like. There'll be a little ring, and there'll be a globe attached to it like that.
so,
So a mock-up of this. And
wherever you're buying it from, I'm sure there's a picture from the manufacturer.
I'll ask Katie. It's not my store, but I'll ask
Ask
her.
Katie.
Yes.
And see what she tells you.
Okay.
Okay. And again, yeah, I guess there can be some discussion about the aspect of globes from a historic point of view.
Oh, she can absolutely do that because they are absolutely
In
appropriate.
keeping with that, like we said, what this fixture's made out of, Okay? It would be also be helpful to know what the distance will be between the bottom of the fixture and the floor area that's down below. That there's a clearance of a certain amount of space.
Okay.
Well, it's gotta be, the door has to
That's what the
clear.
door has.
Yeah, yeah.
I
Yeah,
think it'll be fine, I guess.
but I think you may have to have more, but it would provide information, that's right.
The side's roughly 11 feet tall, so it would be about 9 feet.
Okay, but
I
again,
can get you the specifics.
we've had signs put in those states, and sometimes there's a question about, I think, like with an awning or things, you have to have a minimum of 7 feet, or 2 feet, 2 inches or something, just so we know.
Okay.
Okay. It's clear from our discussions that the whole entire building facade's not being painted.
Correct.
Okay. From the pictures you provided, there's not continuity between 33 and 37 in terms of a single picture. There's a doorway between those two buildings, which kind of was in limbo when you look at these two drawings. And what color that's going to be painted. What I would suggest that you do, or I request that you do, is that you provide a photo that shows the whole entire front of the building. You can have it in addition to these two you have here, but a photo of the whole entire front. And then on that front, shows a little bit above that dental work, so it has the colors of what's there. And then put your notes on that in terms of no painting. But where you're doing the painting and what color it's going to be, show where that's going to be painted. Because the issue, or not issue, but the thing that's left up in the air is this whole entire framework area that's around the doorway.
Okay.
Okay?
It looks from this picture that the apartment doorway is black.
Correct.
It would just show about half of it, not the whole thing.
Because it's just painted black, there's no other detail.
But again,
Is it already black?
no.
It'll be painted black, just like ours, so there's
Oh, gotcha.
So, you know, the picture will show the whole entire front, because instead of two individual pictures that leave part of it.
You are changing the color of the door.
of the door, the entry door, in between, yes, that's being
And
painted
that's why I
black.
need to pick, another reason why we need the whole facade with that door, so we can see that, because that's changing the historic area.
Understood.
Because it says, and again, we go back to this building facade and what's in the facade. In this case, the facade, it does include this doorway that goes to the apartments or
Got it.
whatever is upstairs.
Got it.
Okay. Those were the questions and points that I had. Does anybody else on the board have anything else to add to the applicants?
I'm curious about the transition between the two colors. It's currently one color, this facade, am I right about
It's
that?
actually various shades of green.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is there like a piece of trim there that you're gonna change from black to the brown? Or is it just gonna be a line?
It's the fancy column is what separates,
Like
because
Corinthian column?
that facade is clearly its own storefront, so that's really like the division between the two. And then the door that goes to the apartments and the side that's gonna be black are all kind of like together. There's no like dividing line between that. So it made the most sense for that to go with the storefront.
And these are two separate stores.
Correct.
Yeah.
I mean, what Will is saying will be shown on that picture that shows the whole front, where the black stops and starts and where the other color stops and starts, so that you can see it and we can see it, and we can go out actually and see where this area is.
Yeah.
Okay. Does anybody else have any other questions?
Well, I just have a comment, and so it's two separate stores, and you could have submitted two separate applications. And if it was two separate applications, we would not be concerned about the door to the apartment that falls in the middle. We're only looking at the door in the middle because they put it on the same application.
Well, it's because they're painting it.
And it's one building.
They're changing the color.
It's one building, but if they leased out one space and the application came before us 1 month and the other space still wasn't leased out and they came before us 6 months later, we wouldn't be looking at the entire yes, it's one building, but they are individual storefronts.
But I
So
mean,
just like when we did the application for Fork and Whisk, you know, there was a question about the door to the apartments, and we came with the applicant here to an agreement on how that door would be treated.
I think that was because the applicant did not include it in the information they provided.
They weren't gonna touch it because they were just worried about their storefront, which is a very similar situation right here, and we agreed at the table that they were gonna paint the door to coordinate with the storefront.
I mean,
Which is exactly what she's suggesting they're gonna do here.
I mean, the application here really doesn't mention anything about a doorway, and I think that that's important because it is part of the facade, and it is something you're painting and changing the color. I understand
But
what-
we have
I understand-
precedent.
I understand what
Last
you're
year,
saying.
we approved an application and made an adjustment to paint the door to the apartment on the front of the building next to the storefront. So
Right.
I'm just suggesting that we have set precedent that where we have done this before.
But that was one address. I mean, it was all one building.
Jennifer, what are you
one-
suggesting?
Okay.
Suggesting that detail of the center doorway, she said they're gonna paint it black, it's gonna be the same color as Morton and Davis. And we could, this written documentation could be adjusted to indicate that, along with the other specific details that we just discussed here.
Instead of having to make.
Instead of having to come back, and we just did the previous application where we did a conditional approval on the owner representation, which is the issue with the LLC.
Well, there's a lot of
I
things.
was just gonna ask if we could do a conditional approval with me providing the documentation that you need for ownership, as well as the list of items that can be called out on the drawings that we provided, and we return those, all that information to you guys.
So let me ask you this question. When do you think you're gonna have this place to be open?
We'd like to be open early June.
Okay. So there's certainly times, there's another meeting between now and June.
But
So the information that we're requesting,
The paint contractor would like to get going before that.
If you'd like to have it open in June, how long will it take from the time you start to work on it to get the work done so you can open it?
between the time of the next meeting and then.
Well, I'm saying, if you started to work on it tomorrow,
Mhm.
would it take you a month or 2 months to get everything ready so that you can open up?
I don't know if it's so much of our business.
It's more based on the contractor's schedule.
Yeah, which,
Because I don't really.
because what I'm trying to get at is that you might possibly not be able to open in June, even if you got approval in May,
Oh.
because you wouldn't have enough time to
Exactly.
finish.
That's why a conditional approval would really help us to be able to get all the work scheduled and completed for their.
I think there's too much stuff.
I just think, based on the application right before yours that we just approved conditionally, we have to treat everybody fairly.
This is
And-
different though, isn't it, Jennifer? in terms
No, I
of-
don't think it is.
Okay, I do.
Because we asked conditionally for paint colors on the other one, and the representation of the owner, which is, we're making a very similar adjustment on this application to add more specifics about the colors, and what section is being painted is very similar.
It's much more expensive though. Others was just two little colors on a bird, and the ownership.
It's the same thing,
Well,
there are details about paint, and there are representation of the ownership. Is,
Our task would be to make notations on this original copy that's clear enough, that satisfies
what we've asked for.
what we've asked for, and then
And so that then you don't think we need a picture of the whole entire front? So your question about showing clearly where the two colors come together and what detail it is clear?
I
I agree that a picture you're talking about would have been clearer, and I wouldn't have had to ask that question. But I think for the purposes of making this possible, we could notate it clear enough on the existing images and have them.
Okay, we won't know anything. The applicant has to know.
Well, the applicant is sitting right here and is willing to notate it, so I think we
If it's
should allow that time
If
to
it's
do
noted
that.
on this, that the door next door is going to be painted black to match.
And the paint stops at the.
That's up,
Exactly.
that's up to us, it's not something that's.
Yeah. So should we allow her to make the changes?
Sorry? I have no problem with making it conditional. I don't think any of these things we've asked for are going to be major changes. I mean, they're no changes, they're
Clarifications.
clarifications, yeah. And it's pretty obvious and simple since we have photos that are pretty clear.
And then,
I mean, even that door is indicated, it's black.
By the way, initially, each one of those that you make.
The one thing I would ask about is whether
Initially.
you can choose a globe that's a little smaller. Not small, not these like these bulbs, but something that's maybe 18 inches or...
I can absolutely pass that on to Katie.
I'm thinking something the size of a basketball instead of something the size of.
Well, I mean, I think I like that it makes a statement. That's great. It just feels a little big.
Okay, I can pass it on to her.
Like out of proportion.
A little bit out of proportion, yeah.
So are you-
Can I ask a question? Is this drawing here to scale? It might be giving a different impression.
I believe it is. Again, I am not the one who, it's not my store and I didn't mock it up, but I believe it is to scale.
Good question.
So the question is then,
how wide is
are
it?
you going to make it a condition that it's an 18-inch globe, or are you going to simply leave it up in the air that the applicant can look into it, but you're approving a picture with a globe that's 2 feet? I mean, that's something, if you approve these drawings with what's on the drawings and the information, then that's what you're approving. And you may like something smaller.
If I could suggest that it be changed to not to be more than 2 feet. That way, if they decided to put an 18-inch one there.
Well, then you're have requested about something being small and on scale, and yours also, it's going to be 2 feet.
No, it's not to be more than 2 feet.
Right, so if you're going to
2
give
feet or
it
less.
Well, but that's what they're showing is 2 feet.
Which is.
And I thought you didn't.
Yeah, but you're giving them the option, if they want to put something smaller, if you say 2 feet or less, then they can actually put a smaller one if they
I don't think this is to scale.
Maybe it's not.
How big
Those
is the
say
light
14 inches.
What do you know the width of the entrance way?
I don't know the answer. This is not my store again, so I don't know the retail.
Still more than
The
3 feet.
door is 36 inches, the
Door
door
is
is 3
36.
feet, but the storefront goes out, so it gets wider. I would say it's a little more than 4 feet at the.
So it might be 42 inches.
If you want to say you don't want it to be
Okay,
more than
that's-
18 inches, I can't imagine Katie would have a problem with that.
Yeah, I gotta think, you guys
Yeah.
make that call.
And I think that looks more like 18 inches to me than 2 feet. So if you want to make the call and say it has to be 18 inches or smaller, I think that she gave me her proxy to speak on her behalf. I think that she would be okay with that.
So then cross off on the thing where it says 2 foot by 2 foot and put down 18 inches or smaller.
Okay.
Yeah, that works, 18-inch max.
Anything else from anybody on the board?
Was that an old fixture that she already had?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
Thank you for asking.
She's
Yeah, she does collect old pictures, yeah.
She had mentioned a picture that she's like made.
Yeah,
So
she-
they can-
yeah.
Try to send it to you.
So I'll make a motion to conditionally approve application number 2025-070, tax map number 66.10-1-35, for Chatham Brick LLC, the property located at 33 and 37 Main Street. This is for the historic review for painting the facade and new signage on the facade, and the new light to be installed in the entrance of 37 Main. Based on the application with the modifications made today to the application. Do I need to spell those out, Francis?
I don't think so.
Because it's on the,
It's on the application, okay. And the paint chips submitted for each storefront. And the condition that the Chatham Brick LLC provide documentation showing ownership and permission to represent on this application.
Did you put on this, on the sign thing that it's going to be an MDO board? No, they did, okay, all in one thing?
Yes. I think I got it.
Yeah, that was pretty good. I'll second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'll say aye, but I will tell you, I will look forward to seeing how this comes out, because I do think this is,
It doesn't have to be unanimous.
I know it doesn't, I just,
Vote no.
no, it's not really wanting to vote no, because I think the applicant and the lady here will do the right things based on what they've said. It's just, from a legal point of view, it is a little concerning to me, particularly if they're having just come from New York State Planning Federation meeting where they talked about case laws. But I will approve yes.
We're gonna make you proud.
Motion passes then.
Okay.
Thank
Thank you guys very
Thank
much,
you.
appreciate the time. I'll send you the documentation
I was on.
from the prep.
Great, I'll be here all day tomorrow, so.
That's good.
Thanks.
All ayes.
You guys all set? Thanks, man.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Oh, I'm jumping around, there's many other things to do. The next item on the agenda is an applicant, Daniel Russell, property owner John D'Amato and Timothy Roberts, 70 Center Street and Brookside Avenue, and it has to do with a lot line adjustment.
I'm Daniel Russell, and this is John Donato, the owner, one of the owners. And if I see you all have maps. This is the non-facade application.
You seem to be doing a number of these lot line adjustments.
Really?
Recently. Not something that had happened very much in the past, but now seems
Yeah.
to be more common.
It is, it is. I like doing them because it's not creating any new parcels, you're just moving lines around. So Mr. Donato and his partner, Mr. Roberts, own all this land shown on here as parcel A, which is currently a single existing parcel, and parcel B1 and B2, which together are a single existing parcel. They'd like to make the property that goes with their residence larger by taking a chunk off of the other parcel shown here as B1 and adding it to their residence, and then still leaving parcel B2, which I think is 5,000 square foot zoning there. So
Yeah,
way
it
over-
meets the density control.
yeah, so that's basically what they're doing. They're not, and a lot of times it's easier if you look at the inset map on the upper right, upper left there that shows the before and after picture.
So they currently own both parcels?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's what I call an internal adjustment between two pieces owned by the same people.
I mean, as was said, it meets the density control schedules in terms of square footage and setbacks and everything else.
Yeah. Right.
The one thing that I guess I would mention is with parcel B2, should parcel B2 ever be chosen to be developed for some reason, it would have to come off Brookside Avenue because that's where your front footage is. That's the other little spot on 66.
That's
Central Street
good.
is not large enough to have front footage. So if at some time, and it's not really what we're looking at because it meets the density control schedule, but I thought I would mention the fact that should it ever be developed, it would, in order to meet the density control schedule, frontage would have to be on the other side.
Right. It's not set in stone, but, so we didn't make that part of this application, but Olivia Rugen and Grace Rugen, who are, it's okay to mention that, right?
Absolutely. They're interested, it's not
They're
a
interested in
done deal,
purchasing
but
that. It's not a done deal, so we didn't make that part of the application.
And
And that would solve a huge problem.
yeah.
He wouldn't have a new neighbor in the back, and they'd have a bigger yard.
Any of the board members have any questions regarding this?
I don't have any questions.
Okay, then I'll make a motion. The Village of Chatham Planning Board approves the lot line / boundary line adjustment for parcels A, B1, and B2, with the parcels A and B1 to be merged. This approval is based on a survey and notes dated January 16th, 2025 by Daniel J. Russell, PLS, license number 050639. The result of the lot line adjustment will result in both the combined parcel A and B1 and the parcel B2 both being in compliance with the Village of Chatham density control schedule for parcels in the R1 residential district.
I'll second.
Discussion.
Any discussion?
Don't we have to have a public hearing because it falls under the subdivision?
That's right.
It's a lot line adjustment.
Yeah,
It's not a
new lot
subdivision.
created.
When you're making, it's
Okay.
one lot that's just
Yeah.
being
Right.
adjusted.
Okay, because the email from Ken says that a public hearing needs to be,
Oh, I didn't see that.
It does?
yeah.
Every town is different, so the town attorney's kind of in charge of that, so.
He
It's
said,
the village.
he said there doesn't seem to be any particular issues of concern. A public hearing is required for a subdivision, however, so the planning board should set a public hearing on the application for next month.
But I think he's
It's
confused.
not a subdivision.
It's not a
It's
subdivision.
not a subdivision.
Now,
It does
the
say
previous
pretty
one,
explicitly, the third is a boundary line adjustment, parentheses subdivision.
Yeah, no new parcels will be created, is right in note 4 of
Yeah.
that.
I mean, the previous one we looked at.
I mean, that's his direction from the attorney, that's what.
Okay, so
We're not considering a lot, it's not,
He works for you guys, though.
Yeah, I wasn't copied on that email unfortunately, so I don't know.
Most towns now do not require a public hearing for a lot.
yeah, and
I'll just say that because it's the truth, I go all the.
well, I believe in the other lot line adjustments we did one on Elm Street Extension a while back. We did another one, I can't think what the other one was
I'm
recently.
paying.
I'm paying.
And-
Oh, no, that was a subdivision.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, a subdivision like we did with, up on High Street, not High Street, on.
But it says, the third application is a boundary line adjustment in parentheses subdivision. So is the boundary line adjustment considered under the same rules as subdivision?
And my question would be,
It's the
is
same owner,
if
though,
we
right?
postpone it until next month to vote on it and have a
I guess, yeah,
public hearing,
I mean,
what type of
that's the-
hardship would that, if
Well,
that?
he's been waiting so long for me to finish the survey. Are you okay with it?
I'm not happy.
Yeah, all right. Because he's been waiting forever for me to finish the survey.
it is only 3 weeks till the next meeting because of the 19th. Right.
So,
Okay, so then I'll make a motion, we adjust the original motion to indicate that we will be tabling this motion to the next meeting to clarify and to do what the village attorney indicates needs to be done. And if it's a public hearing, we will make sure the public hearing is identified.
If I'm not mistaken, excuse me, but I believe it's not adjusting the motion, it's tabling the motion.
We're tabling the motion,
And
sorry.
you're not changing anything in the motion, and also making it so that we can have a public hearing.
We're gonna have that go with
And if that's the
our-
case, I'll second that.
Could be.
Can it be approved, can you find out from Ken for real if there actually has to be a public
And
hearing?
then you pretty much, you got the 3 weeks, you're gonna.
Well, I guess what Desiree's saying is if Ken was to rethink what we have here versus it's still in the same ownership currently. It's not, it's just a lot line adjustment between two property owners.
Right.
As to whether that really truly constitutes subdivision. If Ken says it does, still does after really seriously looking at this, then we will have to have the public hearing.
I mean, Ken's not here, he didn't hear my presentation, so is it fair to base it on an email?
Well, to be honest with you, I didn't read the email because it was my understanding we've done this before as a lot line adjustment without having any public hearing. But it is correct that the attorney did end up sending an email. So, if the attorney further looks at this and continues with his original determination that it has to have a public hearing, we will have a public hearing on May 19th, which would be the next meeting versus Memorial Day.
Yeah.
And the building inspector will contact you to let you know what the attorney has said.
Probably I'll have Barbara email you. Yeah.
Okay. I'll be in tomorrow.
Okay. All right.
I apologize to you, gentlemen, because this was of the same impression you were, and I did not read the email from the
Right.
attorney.
Now, he's the town attorney in Copake, and in Copake, they'll approve a lot line adjustment in one meeting. So,
But that's okay, that's
Yeah.
not here.
right.
We don't,
The
the
same
village doesn't
attorney.
have a subdivision law, really.
Right,
So,
so is the I have a mad client here, so I'm arguing on his behalf.
yeah.
And I
Okay.
should be doing that.
I would rather do it right and make sure it's right than have a mad client come back because it wasn't done properly.
Okay, all right.
I think it's pretty.
Okay, so we'll table,
See, on the 19th, now, is there, some towns have different requirements of the applicant for a public hearing. Do we notify the adjoiners, do you, or?
Yeah, I think you guys have to notify that. I'll keep my list, or you know how to get the butters.
Yeah, but I mean, is it just direct the butters?
Yeah,
There's
yeah.
so many questions.
Yeah,
Okay.
across the street, just all the
Yeah.
ones touching.
and, I mean, the first thing I would suggest is we get a second confirmation
Yeah.
from Ken that it does have to have a public hearing.
Yeah.
And then Aaron can contact you with what the requirements
Yeah.
would be on your part for that public hearing.
Which I'll do all tomorrow.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so we table this?
No changes to the map, right?
No, the
changes.
map's great.
That's fine.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Well, you know,
Yeah,
just kidding. Thanks, everybody.
Okay, and I thank you.
Take care.
Okay, there's no applications coming before the zoning board of appeals, so we have nothing to review. We're looking for approval of the March 24th, 2025 planning board meeting minutes. Do I have a motion? So moved. Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
It says on this that the next planning board meeting will be May 26th. May 26th happens to be Memorial Day. The Monday before that is the 19th, and I think we're in agreement that the meeting would then be held on the 19th at the same time, at 7 p.m.
I'll be out of town for both dates.
Okay, so that's
I'll be on the 19th.
I just realized that.
Then can we count on the three of us? Because we just,
If there's 3 people, that you got one.
right,
Yeah, I'm not sure.
okay, because we just told them on the 19th.
Well, we can let them know.
Okay,
I have to look at, I don't know, I have to look at my
Okay.
calendar.
well, everybody needs to get back to
I could
Desiree.
be there.
I can be there on the
Yeah.
19th. There's 2 of us.
We need one more.
Yeah.
Just realized I didn't count this second.
Okay, so we're relying on you, listen.
I'll check and let Des know.
Yes,
We need to, if the 19th is the meeting and it's a public hearing, then the public hearing notice has to be submitted to the Columbia paper by the end of this week, Thursday afternoon.
Uh-huh.
You need to make a decision
Okay,
tomorrow.
yeah.
Hopefully Ken will say the public hearing isn't needed and cancel the meeting.
Well, that's true, so we need to hear from Ken first.
Yeah.
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 And if you need, if Ken says there's no need for a public hearing, then if we still have the problem of having a quorum, then we're still gonna have, this person's still gonna be delayed for.
Waiting, yeah.
So would it be appropriate if I'll make a motion that if a public hearing is not needed, it be approved?
I'll second the motion.
I don't think you'll argue with that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that'll take care of that at least. I was handed a letter, I don't know if each one of you got something from the village regarding to members of planning board and zoning board of appeals. This memo is intended to provide guidance on conducting site visits in connection with applications under review. Each person get that?
Yeah.
Okay. My suggestion would be, since there's a lot to look at and understand, is if each person could take it home, look it over and read it, and then we will just make a motion, whatever, that everybody has read it and understand it at the next meeting.
Francis, I need to actually read it into the minutes.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
Okay, please bear with me then, folks. To the members of the Planning Board and Zoning Board of Appeals, this memo is intended to provide guidance on conducting site visits in conjunction with applications under review, with particular attention to the legal implications of trespassing under New York State law. Site visits and their purpose. Site visits can be an important tool for board members to better understand physical context of properties subject to planning or zoning applications. Observing the site can help inform decisions and provide clarity that may not be available through documents or public hearings alone. Legal considerations for trespassing. It is essential to recognize that unauthorized entry onto private property constitutes trespassing under New York State law. Trespassing is defined under New York State Penal Law 140-05, which states, a person is guilty of trespassing when he knowingly enters or remains unlawfully in or upon premises. Definition section of Penal Law 140-00 states that a person enters or remains unlawfully in or upon premises when he is not licensed or privileged to do so. Aside from certain special cases regarding vacant land or public buildings, entering private premises without prior permission would generally constitute trespass. Excuse me. Key implications for board members. Board members may not enter private property without the express consent of the property owner or lawful occupant. Even if a site visit is suggested or expected as part of the application process, prior permission must still be obtained. If access is granted, It is advisable to request such permission in writing and to coordinate a mutually agreed upon time for the visit. If access is denied or not obtained, board members must rely on publicly accessible viewpoint and available materials in the public record. Best practices for site visit. To enhance compliance with legal standards and uphold transparency, coordinate visits through the board secretary or appropriate municipal office official. Consider visiting in groups or pairs to ensure accountability. Document the date, time, and attendees of the visit, as well as any observations made. If assistance allows applicants, if appropriate, allow applicants to be present or to provide a walkthrough. Violations and grounds for removal. Board members are expected to conduct themselves in accordance with all application laws and application laws and ethical standards. Knowingly violating property access laws or engaging in unauthorized site visits may constitute misconduct and could be considered grounds for removal from the board. Such action would be consistent with the village duty to uphold public trust and maintain lawful ethical governance. Summary. All board members are reminded to respect private property rights, adhere strictly to legal and ethical standards. Site visits may not infringe on property owners' rights, and proper authorization is essential to avoid legal exposure to the individual or the municipality. Please direct any questions or concerns regarding site visit or legal procedures to the village attorney for further clarification.
Thank you.
And I have a question, sort of regarding this. Is the board covered, if we are sued, if the board is sued for whatever reason, are we as individuals covered?
My understanding is if you are doing your job that you're assigned, responsibility that you have, that you're covered. If you're doing something that's in violation, you may not be.
Right.
Well, let me answer that for you, Leslie, because I do all the insurance. And we have errors and omissions policies. It covers you so long as you're not negligent. If you were determined to be negligent, doing something outside of the scope of it, and this is part of what's driving this,
Right.
if you go outside of that boundary, you can be legally held responsible.
What about a decision we make as a board?
No, you're doing that as a quasi-public board,
Right.
so no.
So is the board, but is the
Not
board
personally.
covered? No.
Well, the board has coverage. It doesn't mean you can't get an Article 7 or whatever and lose, but you're not going to be held personally responsible.
Yeah,
I mean, the board, the village has, the same as the village board.
yeah.
I mean, I've been sued, we've been sued. I gave 50 pages of deposition over a crack in the sidewalk, and we lost. Okay, so it happens. We have insurance for that. But if I didn't act or I acted negligent, I could personally be held responsible.
Thank you, Jim.
Yeah.
Are there any other questions?
I was gonna say, in my history of being on board, we have been sued.
I know, I remember something years ago.
It did not, none of the board members were incensed. Basically, what that suit was to overturn our vote to deny an application.
Before we get into any of the conversations that are not specifically related to the meeting, let us adjourn so
Yeah.
the cameras can be turned off.
Right.
Okay, so I make a motion that we adjourn the meeting.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.